reading.
So, if reading is a sin, then the subtitles on these videos shouldn't be there. Just saying, that sounds pretty hypocritical.
Anyone with facial hair like this definitely has herpes.
I don't think that's what herpes means.
This electric fence hole is even more convenient than the one in Jurassic Park 3.
It looks to me like the entire fence has an opening for her to get through. And it's supposed to be on anyway, but due to frequent power outages, it's not on right now. But it was mostly made to keep animals out.
How many times did your name in today?
42.
If you read the book, you know what this means. I'm guessing.
Yeah, we know what this means. But it's not like it's a super important detail, so I'm fine with the movie not explaining it. Though, if you're curious, some of the times they put their names in helps get them more food. Also, as I mentioned in the pinned comment, the older a kid is, the more times their name will be put in the bowl.
Katniss knows exactly where to turn her head to see Gale.
You know this isn't their first time here, right? She's 16 years old, so this will be her 5th time being here at the Reaping. So yeah, she'd know exactly where to look.
The movie makes Elizabeth Banks ugly.
What?
I volunteer as tribute.
I believe we have a volunteer.
Well, that was easy.
Sinning this scene.
Futuristic flip-offs require 3 fingers. Or is this British too?
I know you're trying to make a joke here, but this isn't just a flip-off. It's mostly meant to be a sign of admiration and respect for Katniss after they just saw her take her sister's place as tribute.
Woody Harrelson should never be anyone's mentor.
Yeah, but at least he actually helps instead of just drinking all the time.
Haymitch's alcoholism is introduced and then immediately solved.
That is not true. Haymitch is just drinking in this scene because he doesn't need to do any work right now. Once Katniss and Peeta get to the capital and they start training, then he can start taking this more seriously.
The movie came out in 2012, but the fire effects were completed in 1995.
I mean, this fire isn't even real in universe, so...
How did this girl get up here?
That's kind of the idea. The fact that Rue found a way to climb and outsmart everyone else is part of what Katniss admires about her, especially since she's only 12 years old.
I used to decorate the cakes down at the bakery.
Right, because Coal Mining District 12, where they eat squirrels, has a bakery with a f***ing cake decorator.
I'm pretty sure most of those cakes go to the capital.
I think you have a shadow.
That's a pretty racist thing to say.
Wait, because she's black? The fact that you thought this makes it sound more like you're being racist.
I'm not allowed to bet.
And yet, strangely, you are allowed to act.
So the media monitor pointed out that Jeremy was actually referring to the fact that Cinna's actor, Lenny Kravitz, is a singer, and he's criticizing him for acting. Regardless, it's still a dumb sin, because it's not like people can't have multiple talents, just look at Dave Bautista. Also, did you guys know that he's Zoe Kravitz's dad? I honestly had no idea until I wrote this sin.
How do holograms make these guys' jobs any easier?
This movie is set in the future, dude. Literally every single futuristic movie has holograms. This is a staple of the genre at this point.
45. 44.
Do you really need to vocally count down from 50?
You're forgetting the games part of this movie's title. The Capitol wants the entirety of Pan Am to watch this, so they need to give them a chance to sit down with their TVs on.
If you wanted to see the actual Hunger Games themselves, you'll need to slog through an hour and 8 minutes of the film first.
The entire first hour has been building up to this, and there's a lot of lore, backstory, and character development we need to know before this. I think the movie has the right to take its time.
Builds awesome traps she never uses.
Never uses, huh? I'm pretty sure you cut out this scene that shows her using it.
This death montage illustrates how unimportant these characters are.
Or add stakes to the games. The fact that half the tributes are already dead should make Katniss more afraid that she might go out soon. And come on, they all arrived in the exact same place. It would make less sense if a huge chunk of them would get far at all.
She is almost at the edge.
Let's turn her around.
We interrupt this episode of the Hunger Games to bring you the Truman Show.
Arbitrary movie reference.
Also, if it's real, forest fire won't put itself out.
This is the same machine that can spawn creatures out of thin air. I think they can put out fires just fine.
She's almost there.
This lady's job description is to describe things on screen that are plainly seen and then
Get a cannon ready.
I'm just curious why you're singling out this lady in particular. You earlier showed a guy explaining that Katniss was getting too close to the edge, so shouldn't the same logic apply to him? It doesn't have anything to do with her race or sexuality, does it?
If Haymitch can be her sponsor and send her gifts, then why the f*** did he waste all that time telling her to do the things that get her sponsors and gifts?
Haymitch isn't her sponsor. He had to go to the sponsors and ask them to send the gifts. The movie literally shows us that debate, so this is dishonesty since you didn't show that scene.
How did Will Smith's daughter get up in the tree undetected?
That's racist.
Of course there's a wasp's nest right above the bad guys.
These aren't wasps. They're tracker jackers.
Is she hallucinating history?
Yeah, why not? I think it makes sense that hallucinations would include one's memory.
Mockingjays respond to any old noise you happen to make.
Yeah, Mockingjays listen to anything and repeat it. What's the sin? You just described what happened in the movie.
This girl conveniently shows Katniss exactly where the landmines are.
So?
And this guy goes chasing after a noise he maybe heard.
You know he's meant to guard all this food and supplies, right? So following a noise that could be someone trying to steal it would be kind of his job.
You know, this might be a good time to use that healing cream.
That cream was specifically made for her burns. Rue was stabbed, so how would that even heal her insides?
Obligatory closing of the Deadeye.
Sinning Rue's death.
No cannons for these characters. That lady back at the home base must not have done her job.
You have a point with the kid that killed Rue, but with Rue herself, it took a bit of time for her to die, and there's even a point when the movie cuts out the audio, so the cannon most likely fired during that.
Yeah, this isn't a waste of time or anything. You do know you could die at any minute, right?
This is meant to be an FU to the Capitol by letting them know that they don't own them. Normally they just leave kids' bodies to be picked up, but since Katniss grew attached to her, and she's mad at the Capitol for putting them in this position in the first place, I think she feels justified to do this.
Shouldn't District 11 be used to their tributes dying? Is a riot really necessary?
Sure, but they've never seen someone clearly show pity and sorrow over their own dying. And again, Katniss basically just threw a middle finger at the Capitol, so this inspires District 11 to do the same. This sets up Katniss as the symbol that leads the revolution in the sequels.
Isn't she just sitting out in the open in plain view?
Yeah, but she just lost someone who she saw as a stand-in for her sister, Prim. She's not thinking clearly.
So Katniss is sitting here crying in the woods, and then we cut to Haymitch trying to persuade the Devilbeard, and then we cut to the Devilbeard trying to persuade his grandpa, and then we cut back to Katniss still crying.
Jeremy doesn't understand scenes happening at the same time cliché.
Age differences at this point in child development matter. Katniss should easily dominate this other girl.
Katniss is 16 while Clove is 15. That's already not a good sign for this sin. But also, Clove is a career tribute, meaning she trained her entire life before she entered the games, and we have no evidence that Katniss has ever had to wrestle anyone before. So, no, the outcome of this scene is realistic.
Katniss is surprised the cream worked, even though she used it earlier.
That's not the same cream that she used to heal her burns.
If he really is dead, probably not wise to shout his name at this point.
You really expect her to be thinking clearly when she thinks her boyfriend might be dead?
Why, yes, that is a dog. The finale is a dog. Correction, the finale is several dogs. Awesome.
Double dipping.
Bad guy appears out of nowhere.
There are a bunch of these dogs, like you said. It makes sense for Cato to be up here.
Katniss uses the arrow as a distraction instead of a deadly weapon.
Isn't the arrow a deadly weapon? And what do you mean by distraction? You're literally showing her shoot Cato's hand, which causes him to let go of Peeta and gives Peeta the chance to push him off the cornucopia. Okay, looking back, I think the distraction Jeremy was referring to was Katniss shooting Cato's hand, distracting him so Peeta can knock him off. This implies that Jeremy is saying Katniss should have shot Cato in the head or something, but that would be a horrible idea. Because if she did, Peeta would most likely fall off the cornucopia with Cato, since he's holding on tight. Shooting his hand was the best course of action.
They were okay with dogs possibly killing everyone, but the berries, no way.
The creatures were meant to speed up to the ending, and they don't like them eating the berries because Katniss and Peeta show that they were both going to eat them, which is a problem for the Capitol since they need at least one champion.
So what happens when we get back?
I guess we try to forget.
Yeah, me too.
Yelling at the screen.
Ah, here we go again.
Reaping. I mean reading, but also reaping.
Oh crud, we're already starting with the repeat from the original video. But also, you're doing this movie again 10 years later, and you still don't realize how hypocritical this is?
Also, people actually signed this shitty excuse for a treaty, meaning the alternative must have been much worse. And the movie doesn't even have the courtesy to enlighten us about the horrifying alternative that was avoided by this horrifying agreement.
The alternative was literally killing them all. And remember, you're doing this recent after all 4 movies have come out, so you know that the Capitol destroyed District 13 and are using that to scare the 12 other districts. If they don't comply, they'll commit genocide.
It's your first year, Prim. Your name's only been in there once. They're not gonna pick you.
Premature false hopelation.
But Katniss has a point here. She made sure to only have Prim's in there one time, while her own name is in there a lot more. The odds that Prim would get picked is insanely low, which makes it even more surprising when her name is pulled out.
I'll still cook you.
Preparing a meal without considering that DJ Khaled wouldn't eat it.
But doesn't she never prepare that meal? You're basing this joke off of a threat.
It was the first deer I've seen in a year. Now I have nothing.
Katniss losing this game seems devastating, but Gale solves the problem by throwing a rock to scare some birds, a tactic that you'd think Katniss could have come up with on her own. I mean, she did the leaf wind thing to track that deer earlier, and that seemed to take a hell of a lot more skill.
What's your point? The fact that Katniss could have come up with that idea? I'm sure she could, but why does that mean Gale couldn't? He's also a hunter, and he was just trying to make her feel better after scaring the deer.
Because killing is fun.
They're hunters who have been killing animals for years. Clearly, they've become desensitized to it. Katniss even thinks there's a difference between killing animals and humans.
DC isn't ruining one of its most important franchise characters in this scene.
Arbitrary movie reference.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
I'm honestly surprised there isn't some Hunger Games fandom movement to have all the odd-numbered days in May as some sort of bullshit Hunger Games holidays. I already can't get through May the 4th without Star Wars fans invading the cultural consciousness. Might as well destroy the rest of the month as well.
If this actually did start a May the 4th situation, I'd at least somewhat understanding sinning the movie, but it didn't. So why are you adding a sin for something that didn't happen? How does that make sense to you? What if I send this video because you got better even though you didn't?
That's a Mockingjay.
From this point forward, everyone will treat this pin as if it is special, but nobody will explain why.
See? Right here, you're showing knowledge gained from seeing the sequels. So why did you earlier forget about District 13?
You better tuck in that tail, little duck.
Ducks do not tuck in their tails, so you and your pet names for your sister can just tuck off.
And you wonder why I don't like CinemaSins.
It's a Mockingjay pin. To protect you.
And also to use as a metaphorical through line for the story, just in case we're actually in a movie and need some powerful moments later.
Double dipping.
War. Terrible war.
Gale would be excellent at silent propaganda sins.
It's almost like the Capitol are the bad guys or something.
Also, propaganda's position is barely a stone's throw away from news position, and I'm sending it as such.
Oh good, another exposition sin. I already mentioned this the first time, but this movie needs to explain a lot of lore and backstory before we can get to the titular Hunger Games. If we're going to have a movie where kids kill each other for entertainment, we better have a reason for why it's a thing in this world. Otherwise, audiences would ask questions. In fact, you would if this exposition wasn't here.
The lone victor, bathed in riches, would serve as a reminder of our generosity and our forgiveness.
I don't know, maybe this all complies with the logic that's been set up in the story, but it doesn't absolve the writers for thinking that this is what kids think that adults think. I think.
It's called manipulation.
I volunteer as tribute.
How the CinemaSins writers' assignments are handed out for the Fast and Furious movies somehow makes it into the script.
Sinning this scene again? This is one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in the whole series.
And now, for the boys.
Let's hear it for the boy.
Jeremy sings in a video.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes? You either go with 1 minute or a solid 5. This really is a dystopian future.
A lame nothing sin to pad out this 20-minute video.
To protect you.
Regifting a gift back to the person who gifted it to you.
This pin did save Prim's life since she didn't end up going to the games, so it only makes sense to give it to Katniss, hoping she will survive.
Sorry, miss. I was instructed to allow your friend in for exactly 20 seconds just to remind the audience that they're supposed to be thinking about you two as a potential couple, because how else are they supposed to be invested? But he really has to go now.
And there's also Gale being an experienced hunter like her, so it'd be nice to get some advice from him. These two are friends. Why wouldn't he be here?
Hey, Mitch.
Her name is Katniss, and hey yourself, pretty boy.
Yelling at the screen.
You know, Katniss, he is our mentor. He did win this thing once.
Katniss was literally sitting there silent before this statement, so I don't see why PETA is acting like she just said Haymitch can go f*** himself.
Yeah, she's been silent, but PETA is trying to remind her why they have to pay attention to Haymitch's advice, since it doesn't seem like she's listening.
I just don't think there's anything wrong with getting a little bit of help.
That line felt slightly less forced than the insertion of this flashback, so they must have some sort of shared memory, I guess?
Of course Katniss would remember PETA helping her after he said this. Maybe that was his intention.
Harton mentor has a drinking problem, but through coaching a young protege, they find something worth living for, cliche.
How did you find another way to misunderstand Haymitch's drinking problem? Again, he doesn't feel like he has anything to say now, and he won't truly help them until they start training.
Putting your nasty barefoot within 6 inches of someone's food intake port.
You know he's drinking right now? I'm pretty sure drunk people don't think clearly.
Oh my god, can we just get to Hogwarts already?
Arbitrary movie reference.
Oh, Joy, why don't you join us?
Her name is Katniss, and she'll join when she is good and ready, asshole.
Yelling at the screen again.
Can you pass the marmalade?
So we know thanks to both Prim and Gale that Katniss can hunt, but nothing about that information justifies her being capable of this table stabbing between the fingers trick. And if she's this much of a weapons expert, then she's a dick for not volunteering sooner.
Wouldn't it make a lot of sense for knives to be a huge part of hunting? Because I feel like it does, since she could use them to kill animals at a close range, and unlike with Prim, the 4 previous times haven't had anyone she loves get chosen at the reaping. Alright, I real quick want to elaborate on that last point. It's really dumb that you're suggesting she should just volunteer for anyone who gets reaped, because she's essentially a secondary mother in her family. Hunting animals and buying food from the market, she is the main reason Prim and her mother are still alive. She made it her mission to protect her family at all costs, especially with the father already dead. So her volunteering in Prim's place makes all the sense.
And to get sponsors, you have to make people like you.
Influencer culture.
Haymitch just described CinemaSins, and they somehow missed it.
Also, a movie will now use this Haymitch is irritable but actually wise moment to spoon-feed us some more exposition about a convoluted sponsorship program that allows rich people to send you soup.
Pretty funny that you're using the term spoon-feed, which I feel like that's exactly what you want, since you ask for exposition on things constantly.
The idea that society would not progress past leg-waxing both conceptually and technologically.
It's also a society that still has killing act as entertainment.
The importance of this moment cannot be overstated.
But as with everything in this movie, we will give it our best shot at overstating it anyway.
That's literally his job.
And don't you love how the stylists, they so clearly are able to reflect the character of each district?
Seems more like they've chosen to reflect the character of Cirque du Soleil, but if you say so.
Arbitrary studio reference.
What is that background?
This part of the movie will now pretend that no one has seen fire before. This place is about to lose its mind because of a few flames.
Yeah, because the fire is literally burning on 2 kids? I'm just saying, I'd lose my mind too.
Now see that? I love that. 2 young people holding their hands up, saying, I'm proud I come from District 12. We will not be overlooked. Nope. I love that.
Thank God Stanley Tucci is here to explain this, because I had no idea why anyone would care about this.
Did I say that's literally his job yet?
Before you survive the Hunger Games, your shins must survive this bed frame.
So, regular beds then?
In 2 weeks, 23 of you will be dead. 1 of you will be alive.
Thanks for clarifying. I was worried that one person was going to occupy a quantum superposition.
I'm pretty sure this clarification was for you specifically.
Most of you will die from natural causes. 10% from infection, 20% from dehydration.
The trainer gives us only enough statistics to account for 30%, so maybe this percentage is exclusive instead of inclusive. Either way, it's confusing.
Exposure can kill as easily as a knife.
Bringing a knife to an exposure fight.
But if you learn to get water and survive for as long as possible, that knife is kind of needed to kill that tribute.
Chase, where's my knife? Huh? You didn't touch anything.
These two get into a fight over a missing knife, so we can all chuckle when we find out Rue stole it, not because this place only has 1 knife.
These are teenagers. I'm pretty sure they'll fight over just about anything.
According to Katniss, Peeta can throw a 100-pound sack of flour over his head, but this flashback shows him unable to throw this bread far enough that maybe Katniss could catch it. So I'm calling bullshit on the whole flour thing.
I'm pretty sure Peeta was trying his best to not get caught here.
3 bullseyes in a row? This training montage has real Rocky IV, we've created the ultimate weapon, I will break you vibes. Which is fine when you're a cheesy 80s movie, but a bit over the top 30 years later.
Arbitrary.
Throw that metal thing over there.
What?
I know, right? Be more specific, Katniss. There are several metal things all over this place. You barely nodded a general direction with your head and also gave no indication of where to throw whatever metal thing you all of a sudden think you should throw. This is pointless and non-specific advice, and as such, Katniss is a terrible human being.
Which is why he looked to his left to see if she was talking about that metal thing that he most likely noticed beforehand.
Geez, what is District 3 doing wrong? The 4'8", 65-pound 12-year-old from District 4 has better odds than both of their tributes? Get on the ball, 3. Also, a moment ago, Rue's odds were 60-1, and now they're 7-1. I'm not saying this is impossible, but that would also have to mean something interesting happened off screen, and one would think that a movie exceeding 2 hours could have found a little time to include this.
And you are literally asking for exposition, even though you just complained that the movie did that.
Most people think you can tell an expert by their precision and accuracy, but in movies, you can always tell the expert because they miss first to provide some false tension, skill-doubting bullshit that they can then overcome.
Katniss is still a human being, though, and she's a little nervous shooting in front of all these sponsors. Why do you expect her to hit her target every time? Also, as Viewer Online 101 pointed out, it's not her bow. She's a lot more used to the one she made at home, so it takes her a little bit to adjust. Arbitrary reference from whatever this clip is from.
I'm not sure which is more unbelievable. The angle on this shot from below, pinning the apple to the wall directly across from the pig's mouth, or that these high-powered men wouldn't have a single bit of security or protection from a rogue contestant who wanted to take them out.
While I can't say anything about the first part, this has literally never happened before, and you can tell because in Catching Fire, there's a force field blocking them, clearly showing that they learned from this. You even sinned that movie 8 years before this resin, so you definitely know this already.
From District 1, Marvel, the score of 9.
I'm not sure that score should be valid. I've heard this one may have access to some Compound V.
So yeah, I got a few comments saying this wasn't an MCU joke like I thought. It was actually a reference to Marvel's actor also being in The Boys. I haven't seen that show, so this joke flew over my head. Thank you guys for the correction, and we will relabel this sin as an arbitrary TV reference.
Katniss Everdeen with a score of 11.
This one goes to 11 cliche.
What kind of cliche is that? What other movie has done this?
She shot an arrow at your head.
Well, at an apple.
I mean, there are asshole connotations in both cases, so semantics.
But no one ate the apple, so this running gag doesn't work.
This kind of thing does happen at this point. There's only one winner, right?
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Haymitch is foreshadowing so hard here, you can see the future knowledge sauce dripping off his chin.
Because foreshadowing is a sin, I guess. Even though I'm pretty sure that's a really good writing tool that makes some of the best stories good. I mean, it's one of the reasons Back to the Future is as good as it is.
For a society that uses forced child murder as entertainment, they sure are entertained by the simplest things, huh? Katniss spins around a few times with some fire effects, and the crowd acts like M just dropped new finishing bars on Papa Doc.
Her dress does look like it's literally on fire, and the audience doesn't know how it happened, so yeah, I'd say they should be impressed.
He made you look desirable, which in your case can't hurt, sweetheart.
Wait, what? She got a pre-score of 11 out of 12. The evaluators loved her, and the audience was eating up everything she put in front of them with a flaming spoon. Why is he acting like she's in trouble with the sponsors?
That is not what Haymitch is saying at all. PETA has just confessed his love for Katniss in front of the entirety of Pan Am. Katniss herself got mad about this, even saying this makes her look weak, and Haymitch is pointing out that the idea of them being in love would give the sponsors motivation to send them gifts which could save their life. That's one of the major plot points in this movie and sets up their real romance for the entire series. How did you misunderstand this so badly?
Also, Haymitch has now called Katniss sweetheart at least 5 times.
Sweetheart, 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 sweetheart.
Is it that he's sexist? Or is it that he's an asshole? Both? Well, I don't know. So here's 5 cents for repetition.
Says the guy who opens every video by criticizing studio logos.
I'm sorry I went after you.
That's funny because I'm not at all sorry that I'm about to skip.
You know, I'm starting to wonder what the point of the skip sin is. Some of the times I've seen it, it tends to be during a scene where characters are bonding, and this is an example of that. But why? Aren't scenes like this necessary so audiences can care about the characters?
Katniss, you can do this.
Movie never really addresses the fact that Haymitch had to be encouraging to both Katniss and PETA, and in doing so was encouraging both of them to kill each other. And an examination of what that does to a person would have been more interesting than pretty much everything else we've seen so far.
Sure, but there's also a high chance that someone else will kill one of them, so I doubt Katniss and PETA have to worry that much.
I'm just glad no one checks the clothing for any contraband in this overproduced, down-to-the-last detail reality show. I mean, it's kind of strange, but it sure comes in handy for situations like this.
Cinna has been working here for a presumably long time. I think he'd know how to do something like this without the Capitol knowing.
Movie takes 1 hour, 7 minutes, and 18 seconds to officially Hunger Game. But at least the sequels will focus more on the Hunger Gaming, right? Right?
Yeah, same sin as in the original video, but also, you are literally demonstrating here that you have knowledge of the 3 sequels again. So why did you leave in that earlier sin about Katniss shooting at the sponsors?
42, 41,
40.
They're using voice augmentation because he's a child.
I don't send the laughs as often as the Birdman, but this one sounded especially fake, so I gotta add 10 cents here.
Oh hey, it's that Gale asshole. Remember him?
The movie also cut to Prim and her mom watching the games, so why are you just pointing out Gale here? Like, if you're gonna point things out on the screen anyway, you could at least be consistent about it.
Trying to figure out anything that is going on in this melee through this quick cut shaky cam bullshit. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are dying and such, and that a lot of people are wearing black. That's about as far as I've gotten so far.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate shaky cam as much as the next guy, and there are times in this movie where I feel like it isn't warranted. But I think it actually fits this scene. We're basically being shown Katniss's perspective. She wouldn't be paying much attention to all the kids dying because she's too focused on grabbing supplies to survive, so she would get only brief glimpses of the corpses. This is meant to put us in her headspace, basically.
Katniss creates a trap and has a squirrel roasting on a fire within the first few hours of being in the wilderness, and that's just some insane survivaling speed. I've seen Naked and Afraid. I know what butts look like. I mean, I know how long that stuff can take.
Well, I'm glad you corrected yourself when you said this trap wasn't ever used the first time you seen this movie. But also, she's a hunter. Why wouldn't she know how to do this?
Also, taking the time to cook a meal on your first night in the wild when the sounds, smells, and sights could lead to your murder.
Which is why Katniss immediately puts out the fire when the animal is done cooking.
This person will now use a pen to project a symbol onto a holographic map that will apparently start the montage of the fallen, as opposed to, pressing a button.
She's clearly placing it at a specific part of the dome so all the tributes can see it. There probably isn't a button for this.
We don't feel bad for any of these kids because the movie gave them no dialogue and little, if any, screen time.
Are we supposed to care about them? These games have 24 tributes. That would be way too many characters to get to know and then feel sad that they died. Besides, Katniss is the protagonist. I mean, the books are told almost exclusively from her perspective, so Katniss didn't get to know any of them either. So we, the audience, are in her shoes right now.
I get using the fire to force the tributes together so they have to fight each other. However, killing your star player with a fireball to the face seems like it might negatively affect your ratings.
Says that this fireball is killing her while showing her dodging it. And I'm pretty sure the game makers knew she'd notice it.
She's heading towards the left flank.
Okay. Can you give me a tree right there?
Fancy Beard said, "Can you give me a tree?" Can you give me a tree?
Yes, this laugh was really bad too.
Also, would this amount of interference and control be fair to the betting markets? Would you bet on a basketball game if the producers were like, okay, the Warriors are winning by too much, let's give Boston a 9-foot hoop and go?
You just said why the game makers are doing this. It's to bring the tributes closer together so they can kill each other.
This idiot tries to climb a tree with a sword in hand, and upon failing one time, doesn't think to put the sword in a sword pocket and maybe try again.
Sword pocket? And you say this as if that was the problem, when in reality, he grabbed a branch that fell off, causing him to fall down as well.
These trained assassins stand directly beneath the giant target and shoot arrows straight up into the air instead of backing up 50 yards and having a clean shot.
But they're not as trained with a bow as Katniss is.
Convenient tracker-jacker nest is convenient. Oh, and convenient rue in a neighboring tree to point it out is also convenient.
And?
For those of you who don't know,
this movie has a built-in exposition factory, and it's honestly really not fair to the other movies who have to earn it.
Since the movie can't give us Katniss's inner monologue like the books do, having Caesar Flickerman telling us this is a really smart idea. Honestly, I would have removed the sin because having him explain to the audience in Pan Am who probably don't know is really clever. Also, what do you mean by earn it? What does that mean, and how does this not qualify? You always send exposition no matter what, so what are you talking about here?
The venom of a tracker-jacker sting
can produce powerful hallucination.
Why would Katniss be hallucinating exposition from Caesar Flickerman?
Why wouldn't she?
How long was I asleep?
A couple of days. I changed your leaves twice.
And her clothes too, right? From the urination and such that would happen if you were truly out that long.
That's creepy.
Also, how did they stay out of harm's way that long? If they went full force fire Hadouken on her ass for trying to hang out on the outskirts, why would they just let these two chill for 2 days with no consequences? That's terrible television.
Wouldn't it make a lot of sense to let Rue heal Katniss so she can then get back in the games?
putting bombs all around and, judging by the explosion, also inside your stuff, then being upset when those very bombs blow your stuff up.
In this case, I think what I said the first time was just straight up wrong, but someone else came up with a different rebuttal that makes me wish I thought of it. This pile of supplies most likely has other bombs that weren't buried, and those are what blew up the pile.
No, not Rue. I was fine with all the other bodies, but killing Rue was unacceptable. Am I sinning the movie for making me feel the exact things it wants me to? Yes. Yes, I am. Because it's fucking Rue, damn it.
Well, Rue's death is mostly sad for Katniss, since Katniss saw her as a stand-in for her sister Prim. The fact that she's 12 years old, young, full of life, it's like she saw her sister die. And before you guys tell me that's only really explained in the book, the movie tells us this same info by having Katniss sing the same song that she sang for Prim in the beginning. So this gives the audience a chance to connect the dots and realize what this means for her.
Super nice of the remaining tributes to give Katniss the time to honor Rue with this decorative memorial space. What a kind and understanding bunch of psychopaths they are.
It's almost like they just are around this area.
1 full minute of disorienting rebellion porn.
Pointing things out on the screen.
The regulations requiring a single victor have been suspended. From now on, 2 victors may be crowned if both originate from the same district.
And a hearty fuck you to all the districts who have already lost one of their tributes, and also to those at home who have bet on today's festivities.
Yeah, this is the capital we're talking about. And he's not saying the games now require 2 victors. Cato, for example, would have still won, even though the girl from his district is dead.
Movie cannot convince me that this is proper first aid. Hell, I wouldn't believe wringing out this rag into a wound is right, even if a doctor told me to do it.
Darn it, Jim, she's a hunter, not a doctor.
I think about that all the time. How I tossed you that bread.
Peter.
I should have gone to you.
In case you think this negates my previous sin about the bread tossing, I would like to clarify that the issue was not the act of tossing, but his weak-ass throw.
Who thought that this would have debunked that sin? How would it have? Did you seriously think your audience would misunderstand you?
No, there's no way I'm letting you go.
The power of boners convinces Peter that he wants to die of an infection.
Jeremy says boner.
Instead of grabbing everyone's gift, D5 girl only grabs her own like she isn't even trying to win this thing.
It's almost like she's in a hurry and needs to get out of there before another tribute hits her.
Katniss misses 2 point-blank arrow shots because she sucks at archery, but only when the plot requires it.
You're seriously sinning a character for making mistakes? This is why Katniss is a much better female protagonist than Rey, because she's not perfect at her abilities.
Sensually caressing someone's open wounds. Who directed this, Cronenberg?
Pretty sure Peeta has that healing cream on his thumb.
That's Nightlock, Peter! You'll be dead in a minute!
Remind me again why I want Katniss to end up with either one of these doofuses.
What's the problem? The fact that she's upset? Yeah, she thought he might be dead, and she saw him hold poisonous berries in his hands. Of course she'd be upset.
What are you doing?
Maybe Cato likes berries too.
Sure, but he's probably not going to accept these as a gift, and nobody wants berries that look this stepped on.
Did you seriously think that Katniss would walk up to Cato and offer him berries instead of just putting them near him and tricking him into eating them?
Did you hear that?
Any suspense that could be had from not knowing what's out there was immediately killed by her hologram reveal of the random beast now stalking them. So instead of being worried, the audience is now just waiting for the thing to attack them.
But isn't there still tension in waiting for a creature to attack them and being curious to see how they escape? You just said there isn't tension in this scene, but then explain why there's tension in the scene.
Having Thresh be eaten off screen because he cared about Rue and saved Katniss that one time. 2 things that must mean he's a good guy, and so our good guys couldn't possibly kill another good guy. That would create nuanced feelings.
And also letting her go instead of killing her when he had the chance. That sounds like 3 things to me.
She just creates these demon dogs out of thin air, and you can claim advanced technology all you want, but I'm still going to counter by claiming the law of conservation of matter.
This is the same world that captures kids and forces them to kill each other. Suspend your disbelief, dude.
Also, Peeta is then able to outrun a genetically modified super beast while running on an injured leg. Even after using the super healing lip balm, he should not be faster than Thresh would have been with 2 good legs.
How are you making this point, even though you know the healing cream worked like magic to turn his leg back to normal? This isn't like the book where his leg was infected so badly that he had to get a synthetic one afterwards.
Stop! Stop!
Look, we've seen them create fires and dogs and change rules however they see fit. And you're telling me they can't just rustle up some other contrivance to make sure these 2 can't pull a Romeo and Juliet?
Pause. I didn't respond to this part before, but when I watched Catching Fire from the next video, I realized that both me and Jeremy forgot about this scene.
If that head game maker Seneca Crane had had any brains at all, he would have blown you to bits then and there. But here you are. I expect you can guess where he is.
Yes, I think so.
So the movies are aware something else could have been done here, but Seneca Crane wasn't smart enough to think about it. Anyway, now for the rest.
For that matter, isn't that a better ending to the show? People would talk about that shit forever. My point is, we're supposed to believe that Katniss and Peeta just outwitted the game, but I think the game just gave up because the movie needed to end.
Again, the games need a victor. President Snow even explained earlier that it is necessary to create hope in Panem, but not too much hope to start a revolution. Not only that, but the idea that Katniss and Peeta die by outsmarting the games would no doubt start an uprising, making everyone realize that they can rise up against the capital. The only defense they'd have is that they were so madly in love with each other that they couldn't stand the thought of the other dying, and if they were dead, they wouldn't be able to explain that.
You saved my life.
We saved each other.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star-crossed lovers from District 12.
This celebrity couple's name is Penis.
And Jeremy says boner.
Wait a minute, did she hallucinate this dude before she shot? Because that opens up a can of worms. If she thought she was shooting turkeys, this shot is awful. If she thought she was shooting at this dude, she's awful.
It's extremely obvious that Katniss didn't hallucinate this guy before she shot the arrow. That's literally why she immediately looks shocked and freaks out, because he essentially came out of nowhere. And I think the arrow was actually aiming towards the turkey, but she still missed. The fact that it aimed higher to hit him is a part of her hallucination, I'm guessing.
Hero in the sequel has PTSD about the events in the previous film cliche.
Even if it is a cliche, it's a really good one. Like, seriously, think about it. Katniss was only 16 years old when she volunteered to go into the games, and she had to kill literal children. It makes way too much sense for her to have PTSD. Also, the fact that you're labeling this as a cliche implies that the movie shouldn't have done this. But it would be extremely unrealistic if Katniss just immediately got over all of those dead kids. So this is the movie being realistic, which is what you ask movies to be anyway.
How do the companies that create these video displays stay in business? This picture is awful, and it looks way less convenient than technology we currently have today. Hey, I want a video playing device that has a transparent image so I can also look behind it while I watch it.
The best way to explain this, Sin, is that this movie's technology is simply different from ours, which I think makes sense.
Convoluted plot development has the president of the entire society forcing Katniss to pretend to be in love just to serve this weak-ass love triangle that was weak-ass already in the first f***ing movie.
What? First of all, how is this plot convoluted? Katniss outsmarted the games in the last movie by threatening to commit suicide along with Peeta, and this proved to Panem that the capital's rules can be ignored. Snow is afraid that this will start an uprising, so he wants Katniss and Peeta to prove that they're super in love with each other, and that would explain why they wanted to eat the berries, literally Romeo and Juliet style. And second of all, how is this love triangle weak? You didn't really explain why in the original video. Heck, when you rescind the first movie 8 years later, you didn't even explain it then.
Oh yeah, apparently everything in this society is videotaped. Probably mentioned in the book somewhere, but it sure surprised me.
Okay, since you believe books don't matter, let's just focus on the movie. The film itself is establishing right now that everything is videotaped. And also, even the book doesn't really explain how or why Snow had a camera to film Katniss and Gale's kiss, but that's part of what makes it scary. This is meant to intimidate her and further pressure her into needing to convince Snow that she truly loves Peeta.
Answer me this, assholes. Why the f*** do they need cameras right outside her door if they can just pull up high-definition video of her randomly kissing in an alley any old time they want?
Because this is just meant to build up the tour that they're about to go on.
All you need to do is give a few speeches, wave to the crowds.
Alright, 14 minutes in and they're about to do what we came to see. Speeches and waving.
Well, that's what the book readers came to see, since they knew this was coming. But also, did you really expect the movie to just jump right into the Hunger Games 14 minutes in? Wouldn't you have seen the movie for being rushed?
I said, enjoy it, Katniss. You've earned it. By killing people.
If I recall, you barely killed anyone in the last movie. You nearly got through the whole thing without having to do it once. And one of the bad guys conveniently killed your new friend Rue for you. And Peter didn't kill anyone that I recall. He was too busy camouflaging himself to look like a tree to kill anyone.
Let's just count how many people Katniss killed, shall we? First, she cut that branch with the tracker jackers, which killed Glimmer, the girl who was carrying the bow and arrow for her. Second, Marvel killed Rue, and Katniss shot an arrow into his chest. Third, Peeta knocked Cato off the cornucopia where the canine mutants were, and Katniss mercy shot him. Which, by the way, I think that counts as a kill for Peeta, even if it wasn't direct. So Katniss killed a total of 3 people. And besides, every single victor has to go through this tour, and all the previous ones most certainly killed people as well. So I think her point still stands.
I'm really not in the mood for a lecture. I'll apologize to Effie later. Thought you were Haymitch.
You might have been expecting a lecture, but would it have hurt you to make the tiniest of glances in that direction to make sure it was him before you started ranting?
I mean, it didn't seem like she was in a good mood.
See, Katniss, the way the whole friend thing works is you have to tell each other the deep stuff.
See, I said the exact same sentence to a girl once, but I swapped the word give instead of tell. It was not well received.
I wonder why.
Green. What's yours?
Later on, when this movie is over and you realize it's f***ing 2.5 hours long, the scene about the favorite colors begins to feel less and less important.
But it is important. It's meant to build up Katniss and Peeta's romance even further, which sets up Katniss's desire to save Peeta in the Quarter Quell. And wait, didn't you earlier say their romance was weak in the first movie? Isn't this scene doing exactly what you wanted the first movie to do?
Putting away script to say something heartfelt cliche.
Again, you saying the word cliche makes it sound like movies should stop doing it. But this kind of scene still works in this context, and I'm sure other movies that have done it work too. Iron Man, for example. So, how about you actually watch what the movie does with the cliche before you criticize it?
These people still have no idea how to properly flip someone off.
Oh, you're bringing back that joke? And you're saying this as if they're flipping off Katniss, but they're not. You skipped her speech where she talked about how much Rue meant to her, so this is meant to be an appreciation of her kind words.
Shouldn't President Snow be able to watch and listen to this conversation with his omniscient cameras?
Another scene manipulation. You cut out the scene that showed them walking up the stairs into the attic, specifically to avoid the cameras.
He's worried about rebellion in the districts. He thinks that they don't believe our love story.
You know, Katniss, you should have told me that before I went out there and tried to give these people the money.
Dude, you went off script, remember?
But that's exactly his point. If Katniss had told him, he wouldn't have offered to give District 11 their winnings.
Also, what does any of this have to do with making the people believe you guys are madly in love? The guy got killed because he did the Mockingjay thing while Katniss gave her eulogy.
Peeta made a heartfelt speech by offering to give District 11 their winnings, so Katniss felt like she had to do something similar by giving her condolences to Thresh and Rue's family. If they both do this, then that means they must be on the same page and in love.
What about them? Who protects them?
Haymitch suddenly cares about non-Haymitch people.
You're saying this in the same movie that reveals he is working for the rebellion at the very end. So, yeah, he cares.
Katniss, what were you thinking?
It sounded like she was paying tribute to Rue. Didn't Effie say it was customary to give eulogies? Even if Katniss and Peeta had made out on stage, wouldn't the eulogy part still have potentially led to that guy getting shot, even if they were reading off cards? I am f***ing confused.
I don't doubt that. The cards just meant to say, we feel bad for you, but suck it up. Katniss wasn't meant to explain what Rue meant to her. That's why the old guy got shot, because she expressed her true feelings.
Peeta, will you stay with me?
Ah, geez, she's not actually gonna fall in love with him now, is she?
What's your point? Are you setting the movie for this romance being in fact real? Can you explain why that's a problem?
Instead of being in love, you two sound like you're reciting from a drilling manual.
You guys are still going with the we've got to show them how much in love we are angle? After all you've seen, does that shit really matter?
Yeah, it matters. Did you not pay attention to the scene where Snow threatened her? If they don't convince him that they're in love, Snow will kill them and everyone they love.
You could get married.
All these people are rioting because they live lives, and they don't like that their young people are thrown into a battle royale every year. You think a marriage is going to make them forget that?
Probably not, but it could theoretically convince everyone that their romance is real and the berries weren't pulled out because they were intentionally overriding the rules.
This isn't some creepy Capitol guy touching Katniss. This is some creepy extra touching Jennifer Lawrence.
Pointing things out on the screen cliche.
What's this?
It's for when you're full.
It makes you sick. So you can go on eating.
How else could you taste everything?
Wow, a society that's racist, classist, and bulimic.
That's kind of why they're bad and why they should be overthrown.
Philip Seymour Hoffman is in a movie that is beneath him in this scene.
That sounds like you're saying this movie is bad, which if that's true, then I think you've got some angry fans coming at you.
But maybe if we got away from here, if we went somewhere safe, it could be different.
Or maybe President Snow is recording this conversation and you're giving away your entire plans, you forgetful, stupid person.
But this is in the middle of the woods where cameras wouldn't likely be there to record.
I'm trying to figure out whether this is brave or stupid. I mean, maybe Gale thinks he'll be a martyr or something, but he really doesn't seem to have much of a plan before tackling this guy.
That's kind of the point. He didn't think this through. He saw a woman getting beaten up and decided to act in the moment.
You recognize her? Katniss Everdeen?
Fucking seriously?
Again, what's the sin here? The fact that Thread lets Katniss go because of who she is? She's a victor, and victors are meant to be alive so they can train the next tribute, so he'd get in trouble. What about this doesn't make sense?
Get him more snow.
Man, they would have been fucked if Gale had gotten himself whipped in the summertime.
You're right. So why is that a sin of the movie?
The male and female tributes are to be reaped from the existing pool of victors in each district.
I take it from the reaction that this is the wrinkle Plutarch was talking about, and it was unexpected. But what were the rules of the other quarter quells? The movie sure as hell isn't telling you that.
And this is why the books freaking matter, dude. Because the book explains this information. And I understand why the movie cut it, because it's not really important for the story. Anyway, in the first quarter quell, they forced the districts to vote for the tribute instead of reaping them. In the second one, they reaped double the amount from each district. This just so happened to be the same game that Haymitch won, and we're even getting a book and movie around that. By the way Haymitch kills the last tribute was really freaking cool, and I can't wait to see that on screen.
47 minutes in, and we're still just setting shit up here.
This scene is Katniss freaking out because she knows that she'll be forced to go back into the arena. What about this is a setup?
Peeta has to survive. We have to do whatever it takes to save him.
What? Since when is Peeta Neo? Why is he the one that obviously needs saving?
Because Katniss loves him. She doesn't want him to die. She'd literally be okay with her dying instead of him.
If they call his name, I'll volunteer in his place.
But that isn't how this quarter quell should work at all. How can you have an all-star edition of the Hunger Games but still leave the volunteering intact? I know they just want Katniss in the games and they know no one can volunteer for her, but with such a small pool of contestants, leaving that rule in is dumb.
Why? I genuinely don't see why the volunteering rule wouldn't be there. You even admit no one can volunteer in Katniss's place, so this doesn't matter. As long as she's in the arena where she'll most likely die, this option doesn't need to change.
We should have gone, you said.
What a dick.
But Gale was the one who said no, so he's basically apologizing right now, especially since this could potentially be their last meeting together.
The last time we saw people do this three-finger flip-off salute, a dude got shot in the head for it, and people died. But this time, f*** it. We got these games, so we're fine with letting people rebel now.
When it happened in District 11, it was because Katniss basically incited a rebellion. In this case, they're just saying good luck to the tributes. That's exactly what happened in the last movie when Katniss volunteered in Prim's place.
But this year you'll be facing other victors, and they all know one another.
Why is that? We saw Katniss and Peeta went back to live in District 12 after they won, except for the victory tour, which was a whopping 12 days, so when did the victors from the previous games have time to spend with other previous year's victors to get to know one another? Do they have conventions, like, annually, and Katniss and Peeta just haven't been victors long enough for this year's convention to occur?
When a tribute wins and becomes victor, he or she is forced to train the next tribute, which is exactly what Haymitch is here for. So all the victors got along during that time. That's why Katniss and Peeta didn't get to know them, because they never became trainers.
You go it alone, their first move is going to be to hunt you down.
I don't know what Haymitch expects here. Katniss can't even make the relationship between she and Peeta believable. How's she going to win friends with all the other killers who are already friends with each other?
Watch the scene in the training ground where Katniss befriends Beetee, Wyrus, and Mags. You'll see how.
Did they all continue a rigorous workout regimen after they won? Did not a single previous victor ever have the moral quandary about winning that Katniss and Peeta have? Did more than 5 seconds of thought go into the plot of this movie?
I'm not even sure 5 seconds of thought went into the writing of this CinemaSins script.
The Morphlings, masters of camouflage.
Does every district have a male and female winner from different years to even go to this? Because I'm calling bullshit on that. Wouldn't there be districts that don't even have any victors?
This is the 75th games. That means there were 74 previous ones. Yeah, I think it's extremely likely every single district would have a few tributes.
But I would love to borrow that outfit someday.
Katniss doesn't borrow that outfit right now.
Yeah, that's why she said someday and not right now.
Oh, I see they spent a good portion of the bigger sequel budget on the fire effects. Still not enough though.
Just like last time, this fire isn't even real in universe.
From District 11.
This is what any of us would want to do upon meeting Jennifer Lawrence, but actually doing it? That's a sin, man. Not cool.
Which is why Katniss gives a disapproving look, showing the movie is aware this was wrong.
Cameraman forgets to pan down.
This might be the creepiest sin since you asked for Mission Impossible 2 to look at Tandy Newton's naked body.
Isn't Peeta gonna brush up on his cake decorating?
Who's to say he isn't? And wouldn't he be more focused on making friends?
What's the point of the individual evaluations? Are these people not all already cleared for the game simply by being chosen? Are they going to disqualify you if the talent portion of your program isn't satisfying to them? I mean, someone painted a picture on the floor here as their skill. That old-ass lady did something, God knows what, maybe hugging. But is there really anything on the line here? Do they have another female former victor that can take Katniss's place if she somehow flunks this f***ing evaluation?
I'm pretty sure the last movie explained this, but this is meant to give the game makers an idea on what the tribute's strengths are so they can score them, bet on them, and give the sponsors motivation to want to send them gifts during the games. If they fail, they'll get a bad score and most likely die in the arena.
All the other tributes use words to try and win over the sponsors, but Katniss's only weapon is fashion.
Well, she's not really that good with words anyway.
So even the psychopaths in this group don't want these games to happen?
Yeah? Did you miss this scene that very much showed this?
These victors are angry, Katniss. They'll say anything to try and stop the games.
We're not going by choice. You are our family. And I don't see how anyone can love us better.
I don't know who we will miss more. You or your brain.
The Quarter Crow were written into law by men. Certainly it can be unwritten.
I understand that you have a message for somebody out there, a special somebody.
My love, you have my heart. All eternity. And if I die in that arena, my last thought will be of your lips.
Yes, I'm angry. You know, I'm getting totally screwed over here.
Uh-huh.
The deal was that if I win the Hunger Games, I get to live the rest of my life in peace. But now, you want to kill me again.
Well, you know what?
Right then.
Why does the fashion designer go with the tribute when they're about to get thrown into the games? Who does Peeta have escorting him? It's not Effie.
Peeta has a woman named Portia, who is his clothes designer.
The more allies she betrays, the more friends she kills, the more she reveals her true self.
Why is President Snow even buying this? Katniss is not a real killer, and the last games proved that.
Did you not see me disprove that point earlier? She killed 3 kids last time.
It takes 83 minutes for the actual Hunger Games to begin in the second Hunger Games movie.
Although this movie is called Hunger Games, that's not entirely what this franchise is about. The subtitle is Catching Fire. That is a reference to the rebellion catching on and sets up the next 2 films where they rise up against the Capitol. The previous 80 minutes were setting up both the games and the rebellion. And it's also there for character development, which is important to help us care about what's happening.
How did Peeta win? Did he choke that dude to death underneath the water after that dude pulled him down? That was f***ing quick for a guy who's never killed anyone before.
Again, I'm pretty sure Kato counts as someone Peeta killed.
Unnecessary tension over whether Peeta might die when we all know that if he dies, it won't be because he hacked a force field with a sword.
This isn't just a, oh no, is Peeta okay scene. It's also meant to build trust with Finnick. Also, I'm genuinely mad that I missed this the first time, but it's also pivotal for the Everlock romance. Snow's been pressuring Katniss to prove that they are in love, and this scene accomplishes that. The way she's reacting to this truly shows that she would actually hate it if he died here.
Stupid Pan Am game maker programs Colorful Lizard into the game arena just so the director can have this fun little establishing shot.
Jeremy points things out on the screen, cliche.
Here are all those people we didn't have time to give a shit about.
I'm not repeating myself from the last video. We weren't supposed to care about them anyway. Let's move on.
What is it?
I think it's a spile.
I guess Haymitch can't write on the note what the gift is. She's got to guess.
Katniss knows what this is because she used one once with her father before he died. I'm sure Haymitch knows about that and figured that Katniss could figure it out.
cheating.
How is this cheating?
Magical Hill comes up out of nowhere to help them fall to safety.
Magical Hill? Are you suggesting forests don't have hills?
Now the fog is disappearing altogether. We learn later it's because each threat is contained to its own quadrant, but that's really f***ing stupid. How can you have tributes running through an invisible force field that somehow contains fog?
This movie has incredible technology that is more advanced than ours in the early 21st century. I'm sure they have a way to do this.
Magical water comes out of nowhere to help wash off the poison.
A pond in the middle of a forest is magical? I'm starting to wonder if you know what that word means.
Clever application of the monkeys hate saltwater science fact, which everyone knows.
You earlier said that you're aware that each trap is contained in its own area with the fog, so why are you now pretending to not know that with the monkeys?
See anything? Dickory dock.
These freaking idiots immediately start ignoring the genius who helped them figure out the clock thing, even though she's still clearly rambling important things.
She's literally just singing, and Katniss already figured out what she was saying.
Oh, come on. You know for a fact that's not Prim. I mean, seriously, come on.
It's called panic. The fact that she heard Prim's voice brings up the implication that maybe the Capitol captured her and is keeping her in the arena. The voice sounds exactly like her, so Katniss thinks that might be a possibility. Like, if you heard someone you loved was in this place, would you immediately assume it was a bird copying his or her voice? No, you'd want to know if they're okay.
They might have been better off just leaving the fire effect shitty and giving the extra CGI budget to these jabberjays.
They look alright to me.
Because gravity.
What does gravity have to do with shooting an arrow into the sky? Are you suggesting arrows would fall back to the ground whenever anybody shoots one?
The plan was always to get you out.
And put you in the most difficult arena in the history of the Hunger Games to accomplish that plan. Also, what was the plan before Katniss shot the dome with her electric arrow? Sure, they cut out her tracker, but everything is televised. You know, nothing is secret. How are they going to accomplish all of this without Katniss doing what she did?
Beatty attempted to destroy the force field himself, but failed. Katniss figured out what he was doing, and so did it herself.
I got him out in time.
Gale tells Katniss he got them out in time, so she has to figure out what the hell he meant by that.
Which would you rather hear first? Your entire home being burned to the ground, which makes you wonder if your family died there, or your family is safe, so you at least have some sort of comfort before you hear the devastating news? I think the answer is obvious.
Okay, so there's no more District 12, lots of stuff hanging in the air, and you won't be able to see what happens until next year, when we deliver you The Hunger Games Mockingjay. Part 1. Oh, and by the way, you.
Now you're sitting the movie for ending on a cliffhanger? What's wrong with that? Empire Strikes Back did that too, and everyone still loves that movie. Heck, the first two Lord of the Rings movies did that, and no one seems to care. In fact, I think the movie did an excellent job on giving us so much to hang on to, getting you excited to see the next movie. Which I definitely am. Excited to tear your Mockingjay videos apart.
In 5 seconds, Katniss basically sums up what happened in Catching Fire. If I'd known she was going to do that, I would have saved myself the trouble of watching it.
Yeah, but let's not pretend you don't need it. In the last movie, you forgot that Katniss killed 3 people in the 74th Hunger Games, so you clearly do need reminders of any previous movie's events.
You can't be in here.
This is a closed set for the next Alien movie.
An arbitrary movie reference in the first 30 seconds? That's gotta be a new record.
For an underground bunker used by a defeated society in a post-apocalyptic dystopian future, that hospital setup seems pretty sweet.
Which has been around for over 70 years. You would think it'd at least look decent by now.
How the hell was she able to keep up with that Pearl through all the events that happened between Peeta giving it to her and right now? I get that she has feelings for him, but I have feelings for my wife, and I'm on wedding ring number 3.
First of all, I know this is super nitpicky, but you said through, while the subtitles say though, missing the R. Second of all, you're forgetting her age. Katniss is 17 years old now, and teenagers tend to be super emotional and committed to certain things. I mean, this woman literally wanted to die just so Peeta could live in the last movie, and she was pissed when she saw the Haymitch betrayed their deal to keep him alive. And you said you didn't need a recap of Catching Fire.
Finnick.
I wanted to go back for Peeta and Joanna.
No time for useless pleasantries. We wasted all our dialogue time in the last movie.
Well, to be fair, Katniss was a little too emotionally distracted when they told her Peeta was left behind, so I doubt she would have listened if Finnick told her then.
Prepare yourself for 2 hours of brooding and washed out color palettes, because turning this story into a two-parter means you gotta pad out the runtime.
Not necessarily. The audiobook that I listened to for Mockingjay is 11 hours long, so the filmmakers had to condense that into 2 films, both of which are 2 hours long each. Yeah, they condensed 11 hours into 4. And yet, the first 2 books were around that same runtime, and they were able to condense them into 2-hour films just fine. I'm just saying, while I love these movies and think they adapted the books almost flawlessly, Mockingjay did not need to be split into 2, and that would be my only real complaint.
This place is fucking massive, yet they expect me to believe that they were able to construct this underground facility in complete secrecy without one of President Snow's omniscient cameras getting wind of it?
The Capitol does know about this place, but they don't care about it. They made a deal with 13 to allow them to rebuild their society as long as they don't attack each other. They lied to the rest of Pan Am when they said the place was over and done with.
Capitol bombed the surface to rubble. But we're military, so we learn to survive down here.
For 75 fucking years. Presumably they stored up on vitamin D injections. Also, how many people are living down there? A few thousand? How many people live in any of the districts? Is Pan Am home to only, 100,000 people?
The only question I'll answer is that in the later scene, when the film crew record Gale's recounting of District 12's bombing, he briefly mentions that 10,000 people lived there. As for the rest, I could Google them, but I'm not gonna, because it doesn't really matter. You're asking a bunch of irrelevant questions in a movie that you literally accused of padding its runtime. If they did answer it, you'd complain about it.
Madam President, may I present you with The Mockingjay.
Philip Seymour Hoffman and Julianne Moore are in a movie that is beneath them in this scene.
Hey, they both should be honored to be in this series, dude.
And I can't imagine what it's like to live through the atrocities of those games.
It wasn't terrible. I'd probably give it a PG-13 rating, and I think the MPAA would agree with me.
Was it terrible? Yeah, let's just gloss over Rue's death and just generally being scared for Peeta's life throughout. I get you're talking about the violence, but that's not the only thing Coyne is talking about here.
President Al McCoy.
Watching scores of young adult movie adaptations, I have been trained not to trust a woman in power, especially if they're played by a respected actress. So score 1 for the glass ceiling, y'all.
This man just said that Professor Minerva McGonagall can't be trusted, and I'm offended by that.
So we're gonna shoot a series of propaganda clips. Propos, I like to call them.
What, was Gandalf too silly?
Nah, Propos has a better ring to it anyway.
Peeta was the one who was supposed to live.
But f***ing why, though? I'd hope that during the next 4 hours they're going to devote to telling the rest of this story. We would get some sort of explanation for why Peeta is some sort of golden boy, but I'm sure we won't.
So in the last movie, I said that the reason was that Katniss loved him and just didn't want to see him die. I still stand by that, as it's a little selfish of her to think of him, but not the people she loves that her dead body could come back to. But Viewer Online 101 pointed out that Peeta is generally a better person than her, as he's kinder, more caring of others, and not as guilty of killing. I did say I think Cato's death was partially on him, but technically speaking, Katniss was the one that shot the arrow at him, so that's why Katniss believed Peeta should have been saved instead of her.
Maybe you should have rescued the boy instead.
So he could teach everyone how to make themselves look like a tree? Because that's the only thing he brings to the table.
Did you just forget the previous 2 movies or something, even though you sinned them? Because while Caesar Flickerman was interviewing all the tributes in both movies, Peeta ended both of them with big news that moved the audience. His love for Katniss and Katniss being pregnant. Peeta is a big talker who can galvanize an entire audience, so that's what he could do. But let's also keep in mind that Coyne never liked Katniss, and Plutarch has to remind her why she's important for the rebellion.
They'll follow her. She's the face of the revolution.
And in 50 years, college students will wear t-shirts emblazoned with Katniss's face.
And your point is?
Giant military planes remain unnoticed by the all-seeing Capitol.
They are leaving District 13, a place the Capitol isn't even paying attention to, and flying to District 12, which was just bombed, and the Capitol is also not paying attention to it. So why do you think they should notice this?
Plutarch and Coyne allow Katniss to visit District 12. basically by herself. Her only cover is Gale, whose only weapon is possibly being confused for Thor.
Again, the Capitol doesn't have any cameras here. They have no reason to fear for Katniss's safety.
Hunger Games predicts the fall of the Hall of Justice several years before Warner Brothers does it in real life.
Arbitrary movie reference.
How are they going to know to come back and get her? Did we agree on a set time? Or is she just going to flail about for a minute so they'll realize that she's ready to go?
Katniss has a communications device that she can use to tell them when she's ready to go.
Movie expects me to believe that everyone in District 12 was killed, except for this dog. If he survived, then there has to be some scared kid in a closet somewhere, right?
How do you know this dog was even here when the bombs dropped?
Did the Capitol fly over District 12, destroying all the buildings, get to the last two and say, okay, that's enough, let's go home? I'm glad they did, or Katniss's exploratory visit would have been severely cut short.
They have no reason to destroy the victors' houses. The whole point of blowing up District 12 was to kill everybody living, and when that happened, all the victors weren't home. Plus, we later see that Snow left the rose behind for Katniss, so this was most likely intentional.
Oh my god, it's the thing from the first movie that I forgot about until right now.
There's the rose I just talked about. So why did you not realize that Snow probably left the house standing for this specific purpose?
This shot made me think my aspect ratio was broken.
Did you just admit that you're blind?
I smuggled him in.
Does it still count as smuggling if it's just in your bag and no one checks?
Judging by the later scene where Katniss had to convince Coin to allow Prim to keep Buttercup, yes, it counts.
Also, that cat is fucking fat. It's better not to think about how it got that way in a town full of corpses. Also, thanks for making me Google, do cats eat dead bodies?
Dude, this movie is set directly after the last film. At best, a couple weeks have passed. Buttercup was this fat before the bombs dropped.
I don't know what they'll do if they find him here.
So, Buttercup tastes pretty good, right?
You're making this joke, even though there's a later scene where Prim went back for him while the Capitol was dropping bombs on them?
Is that supposed to be the Waltz of the Flowers from the Nutcracker? Because it is.
I'm not going to play that song because of copyright reasons, but I don't think it sounds anything like this.
Any who find this suspicious, to say the least. It seems as though she was part of a rebel plan.
And they would be right to think that. But what actually happened was the rebels just happened to luck the f*** out.
Lucky? What about Katniss's rescue was lucky?
Let's just take a second to call out the most uncomfortable collar I've ever seen. Maybe this is just a fancy way for the peacekeepers to hold a knife to his throat.
You just said why this makes sense. Peeta is being forced to say this stuff so he can stay alive and protect Katniss.
Everyone needs to lay down their weapons immediately.
Why do you think he said that?
Katniss doesn't rightfully assume that he is being forced to say this because the Capitol is holding him prisoner, because that's obviously what is happening.
Apparently it wasn't obvious enough for you in that last sin, but also, she just found out that Peeta is still alive after being afraid that he might be dead. I don't think she'd be thinking clearly.
Even if we win this war, what happens to Peeta?
Did Peeta cast a spell on her or something? She went from being pretty blasé about Peeta in the first and most of the second movie to lamenting him in basically every scene so far in this movie.
Really? Are you forgetting that Katniss started to warm up to him in the last movie because Peeta helped her sleep whenever she'd have nightmares? Wait, you couldn't have. You sinned that scene.
Peeta, will you stay with me?
Oh, geez, she's not actually going to fall in love with him now, is she?
Not to mention, she had been spending the entire quarter quell wanting to save him, and, again, was pissed when she found out that Haymitch wasn't saving him. I thought you knew that, but I guess not.
Anyone can be replaced.
Not Philip Seymour Hoffman, judging by the wonky CGI in the last film.
And the filmmakers clearly agree with you, because they made it clear that they would not use CGI to recreate his face in either movie. There were only 2 more scenes Hoffman wasn't there to film, and they rewrote both of them to compensate.
There isn't a soul in this dungeon who knows the first thing about Katniss.
Except her mother, her sister, and her lifelong friend and hunting partner.
That's not Effie's point, though. She's more referring to how she dresses and the best way she can appear in front of an audience.
I hardly ever see children around here.
Child labor laws make it difficult to hire them as extras.
But Prim explains why they aren't around in this scene, and you cut her off before she could say it.
For the extraction of the victors held hostage in the Capitol. Peeta Mellark.
How colossally stupid are these people? Can someone explain to them how being a prisoner works?
They don't know Peeta like Katniss does.
If Katniss Everdeen fails to fulfill her duties, the deal will be off.
Even though leadership knew this speech was happening, they didn't decide to put Katniss under protective custody, even though they knew her conditions would piss everyone off.
Protective custody? What are you talking about?
There's not much of a prep team here in 13, but
We will make you the best dressed rebel in history.
Well, yeah, that's the most important thing about a rebellion, the outfits.
Well, it worked for Captain America.
Okay, let's bring up the setting.
Good thing these people have a holodeck.
Yeah, this is the future. Why wouldn't they have it?
People of Panem, we fight, we dare, we...
Does she know the line?
I know it,
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Jesus H. Christ, are we really spending time with this? I'm too fucking bored to make a witty observation at this point.
Yes, the movie has time for this. This is meant to show that Katniss isn't a very good actress, which sets up the conversation that Haymitch has where he explains that to get the best speech out of her, it needs to come from her, unscripted. Listen, I understand finding scenes boring is subjective, but you can at least understand why the scene is here before labeling it as such.
Maybe I don't recognize you sober.
Well, Katniss, the important thing is that you're a dick about it.
Considering Haymitch betrayed their deal to keep Peeta alive in the last movie...
When she chose Rue as an ally as well.
Yeah, you remember Rue, right? Back when this was just a Battle Royale ripoff and way more fun?
Well, this might be the most frustrating sin so far. Jeremy just implied he found the Hunger Games themselves more fun. Now, he did criticize both previous movies for waiting too long to get to the games themselves, and I wanted to focus on the fact that the games are not entirely the main point of these movies. But now, I have to say it. The point of these movies is that the Hunger Games are bad. Randomly picking children and forcing them to kill each other is extremely immoral, and is exactly why the main plot is actually about rebelling against the Capitol. You are basically acting like the people of Panem who get excited to see kids die, but we the audience are supposed to see that as a bad thing. I even got one comment that pointed out the games themselves were the hardest part for Suzanne Collins to write. The fact that you have proven that you completely missed the point of this story should really tell us how bad your film analysis is.
We can't guarantee her safety.
Remember when you sent her to District 12 unarmed and pretty much all by herself? You were still wanting her to be the Mockingjay then, but clearly had very little concern for her safety.
Yeah, because there wasn't a reason to protect her there. But in every other district, the Capitol is going to be there for one reason or another.
I've made you some surprises.
Because you know what was missing from this series? A scene with Q.
Arbitrary movie reference.
I couldn't just make you a fashion accessory.
I guess high-level computer hacking skills lend themselves to being an excellent boyer.
How many times do I have to ask if you saw the last movie? Because you clearly forgot that BD created all the wiring around the tree that got struck by lightning. He has always been an expert on technology, not just computers.
Regular, incendiary, explosive arrows.
Because there is no way she's going to mix that one up. Also, geez, dude, you've got that kind of weapon just lying around for any asshole to pick up at a moment's notice?
You don't think this room would be locked whenever Beatty isn't here?
And your cameraman over there, Castor?
Hello.
And Pollux.
Was the screenwriter a big fan of Face Off or something?
Screenwriter? Sir, the screenwriters did not name these characters. Suzanne Collins did. I know you think the books don't matter, but the books are why we have these movies in the first place.
Also, I've seen enough Star Trek to know that one of these dudes is definitely dying later.
Arbitrary TV reference.
Just let them see your face.
It's real hard for them to see your face when no one is paying attention because they are too busy not dying. But suddenly her presence heals them just enough to stop writhing with pain so they can look up at her silently.
Because they didn't notice her at first and then slowly started to see that she looks exactly like the girl who won the 74th games?
Also, I like the scene way better when it was in Gone with the Wind.
Arbitrary movie? Oh, come on! Are we really spending most of this video making references to other movies you've seen?
We need to find cover now.
Where the f*** did that siren come from? Does the janky refugee hospital have radar detection? If they do, it clearly doesn't help them out too much.
Why is this question relevant again?
These bombers have shot down literally every other person shooting at them. You know, the guys with actual guns. But they can't manage to hit Daryl and Hawkeye over here, even though they're just standing in plain view.
Probably because they didn't see them.
Where the Capitol just bombed a hospital filled with unarmed men, women, and children.
We don't get to see the moment when they go back to the base and realize her mic was off and they had to overdub all of this.
You mean the mic that Katniss has on her person? Why would that be off? She was most certainly told to keep it on the entire time they were here.
That our moment has arrived.
The rebels are all very excited about their propo and that hospital getting destroyed.
I mean, sure, a hospital might be gone, but at least this propo could inspire the rebellion to grow stronger and stronger.
This plan requires all these dudes to be the worst shots ever. And I guess they left the bond duty to one dude. What if that one specific guy got shot? Game over, man! Game over!
Well, firstly, shooting moving targets isn't as easy as you're suggesting. And secondly, how do you know any of these other guys don't have detonators?
I got good news. Coin agreed to let us hunt above ground.
And I've got bad news. Coin has terrible judgment.
Considering she goes on to suggest a new Hunger Games that would kill all the people that were loyal to Snow, yeah, you're right.
Hunting scene was necessary to bloat the running time of a part 1.
Random sin was necessary to point out the movie padding the runtime so the writers can pad out this video's runtime.
Hero now has compassion for all living creatures cliche.
You know you made this video after part 2 came out, right? Because she kills a bird at the end of that movie, so this cliche is wrong.
He's changed so much already. What are they doing there?
Sweet. By the looks of it, they are just feeding him a little less.
You're probably right, and I don't see why that's a sin. But more importantly, the ding sound played while you were talking again. Surely a YouTube channel with millions of subscribers wouldn't make that mistake multiple times, right?
I have to show them.
There's been a whole lot of showing, and not a lot of Hunger Gamesing. I'm starting to think the whole 2-part thing is just a way to make double my money for the same amount of movie.
Not a whole lot of Hunger Gamesing. Please don't make me repeat myself about how that's not the point of this franchise.
The relationship between Gale, Peeta, and Katniss is like a love Bermuda Triangle, because I'm fucking lost.
Well, since you didn't play Gale's explanation for why Katniss kissed him, I believe you.
I knew you'd do that.
How? I didn't.
Because I'm in pain. That's the only way that I can get your attention.
Ah yes, the need for a part 1 becomes abundantly clear when you just see everyone outside enjoying nature.
Jeremy points things out on the screen cliche.
That line was originally Necklace of Rope.
Which doesn't exist, and also don't make sense in the context of a song about a hanging tree.
Yes it does exist. That was the original lyric for this song in the book. And how does it not make sense? Rope is kind of needed to hang people at the hanging tree.
I designed this signal defense system.
And I based it on the Iron Man miniaturized arc reactor.
Jeremy makes so many arbitrary references that I don't know how else to reword this one sin.
Even though District 13 has a giant arsenal of weapons, they don't find a way to arm the rebels, forcing them into suicide missions.
This isn't District 13 though. This is taking place in 5 as the citizens that live there blow up the dam that was built.
The rebels were able to destroy this seemingly robust dam with a couple crates of dynamite. This dam was probably designed by the same people that designed the version of the Hoover Dam that was featured in the San Andreas movie. Also, movie turns into 2012.
2 more movie references in a row. If you make another one, I'm adding 50 sins.
Goodness.
Alright, 2 things. 1, Peeta conveniently fades back in just so we know that he sees the video, because, plot.
Because Beatty is still working on getting this to work, and it isn't entirely overtaking the Capitol's footage.
They're coming, Katniss.
That was a warning.
Between this...
That's it. That's our footage.
Beatty's in.
And this...
He sees our papa.
I'm starting to wonder if there's a gas leak down there that is causing everyone to state obvious things.
I'm pretty sure they're spelling it out for you specifically, since you don't seem to pay attention to movies very well.
Mom!
Considering how many people are in this bunker, Katniss was able to find her mom in an unreasonably short amount of time.
That's because every bed here was assigned to a specific person or party. Katniss, Prim, and their mom all share one bunk bed, and it was given to them by 13.
Premature sigh of relief.
How is it premature? She was scared that Prim might not make it to the bunker, and now she sees that she's almost there. Not to mention they all get inside anyway. So again, how is this premature?
You went back for the cat? I wasn't gonna leave him behind.
I know, Prim.
Katniss follows up with this, instead of, that's a terrible excuse, it's just a cat, and he's survived 1 bombing already, so he'd probably be fine.
That didn't stop people from begging the cat to be alive and alien. Hey, if you can make random movie references and count them as sins of this movie, then I can count them as sins of this video.
Movie becomes a delightful cat video.
He's taunting us with them. I didn't understand until just now, watching that stupid cat.
Whoever the screenwriter is for this movie has no faith in the audience to make any connection to their own, and is making the side of my head rather sore.
Clearly you didn't understand it though, since you labeled that scene with Buttercup as a delightful cat video.
Either they went back and dropped the roses after the fact with unbelievable accuracy, or those roses have neutron star level density and cause that crater.
What do you mean by unbelievable accuracy? They just dropped them all over the surface around 13.
Can you speak up? We don't have a mic on you.
When have you ever had a mic on her?
When she was wearing Cinna's Mockingjay outfit.
13 is alive and well. 13 is alive and well, and so am I. 13 is alive and well, and so am I.
I bet if she keeps saying that over and over, Katniss will start saying it too.
That's literally how filming stuff works.
What are you just gonna jump out of the vent and go storm the Capitol?
Hey Mitch, I've got this. I don't need your help singing this movie.
So to sin for Katniss to make this suggestion, She's a literal teenager. Of course she didn't think that through.
I never asked to be in the games.
Technically, she did. She volunteered.
But she then goes on to explain that she just wanted to protect her sister, so that was her main focus in that moment.
It's a trap.
Can we all just agree that no one can say it's a trap except Admiral Akbar?
Okay, I can't take this anymore. I freaking warned you.
Oh man, she's real sad now. She busted out a second tier.
Jeremy points things out on the screen, cliche.
So the whole plan was to mind control PETA, so he'd attack Katniss when he got back to the hidden rebel base. But why not the other people they sent back, like Johanna and Annie? And did they really think he'd get a good chance to kill her? I mean, don't get me wrong, he's getting some good shots in, but this is some half-baked right here.
Firstly, the Capitol didn't mind control PETA. The movie later explains that they tampered with his memories with Tracker Jacker venom, making him view Katniss as a threat. Secondly, while Joanna does have memories of Katniss, Annie has literally never met her before, so there's no way they could hijack her to do the same thing. And thirdly, you ask if they really thought he'd get a good chance, and then admit that he has a really good one, since he almost choked her to death. If Blade wasn't there to knock him out, Katniss would be as dead as fried chicken.
They turned him into a weapon, Katniss, to kill you.
With all this sci-fi going on, why didn't they just turn PETA into an atomic bomb or something? Or why didn't they make it so they could track him, so they could see where the rebel base is?
What? They know where the rebel base is. They literally dropped bombs on it.
Also, I guess this is for the best. If Katniss and PETA ended up together, their celebrity couple name would be Penis, which is something I think we all want to avoid.
Jeremy says boner.
Let's try your voice now. My name is Katniss Everdeen. I'm from District 12.
Unnecessary, over-the-top expositional line.
Well, you did forget a lot of important details in the last video.
Also, couldn't they start her out on something a little simpler? She can't f***ing talk.
Double dipping.
We're going to test his response on someone he remembers from home.
Someone that will be a surprise to you and the audience.
Katniss was most likely told that it was Prim off-screen. And why does it matter that it's a surprise for the audience?
Wait, Katniss doesn't have to wear a jumpsuit, but Prim, who moments earlier didn't have to wear a jumpsuit, is now wearing a jumpsuit. Did they roll out new outfits between the day that happened between the last film and this film?
It's possible that Prim's doctor outfit would make PETA feel uneasy, so wearing the regular jumpsuit could at least make her seem more friendly.
Good thing PETA's wearing the standard issue modesty leggings provided by this underground hospital.
Pointing things out on the screen.
Snow has to pay for what he's done.
Her damaged vocal cords, speaking voice sounds just like my morning after a really good night voice.
I'm not entirely sure what her voice would have sounded like after a couple hours of healing, but it at least sounds okay to me.
This will they won't they with these two just needs to be a won't they, because they clearly don't want to dedicate any time to having Katniss's emotions toward Gale make any sense.
It's like kissing someone who's drunk. Doesn't count.
This micro PSA is brought to you by the Cosby Consortium.
So, doesn't this debunk the previous sin?
That's an application of the hummingbird trap.
This is why YA is so popular, because it lets teens fantasize that adults give a shit about their dumbass ideas.
Gale has been training to be a soldier for a long time now, and has plenty of experience as a hunter to go along with that. This is irrelevant anyway, because he is 19 years old, so by definition, he ain't a teen anymore.
I guess there are no rules anymore about what a person can do to another person.
This society killed children for sport. There were never any rules.
That's exactly what Katniss's point is. She even compares Gale's philosophy of killing to the Capitol's willingness to kill children just for entertainment. Gale even later goes on to suggest trapping civilians underground, and everyone points out how messed up that is. Way to miss the point of this scene.
This is the nut.
Okay, fine, that laugh deserves another 10 sins.
Ah, the hologram, the make your movie look futuristic and stupid at the same time CGI crutch that, despite years and years of progress, never improves.
Can you explain how it can be improved, though? Because that's a really vague statement that I have no context for.
We took heavy losses.
Gwendolyn Christie's acting specialty is showing up as a military commander for all of 4 minutes in blockbuster films.
And yet, it's still better than spending 2 movies under a helmet and never doing anything cool.
Your people have suffered more than just about anyone else at the hands of the Capitol.
Which is why I won't condone a mass suicide.
Also because they already did that at the dam in District 5.
I'm pretty sure they aren't related to those people at all.
There's civilians in there.
In the underground, impossible to penetrate military compound? What the hell for?
So they can be protected by any incoming attack? What kind of question is this?
Does the movie not really want to show us this avalanche plan they just cooked up? Hasn't the series made enough money to show it? Probably not. We just want to stay here with Katniss while she looks extra concerned.
Katniss is the main character, and it makes a lot of sense for her to stand far away from it so she doesn't get killed, or at least seriously injured. We are seeing this from her perspective.
That's why I killed Cato, and he killed Thresh, and Thresh killed Clove.
I can't even remember who any of these people are anymore. This may be more of a sin on me, but I don't have a sin counter, so.
Well, lucky for you, that's what I'm here for.
Cinna made her suit bulletproof, which is great. What's even better is that this wasn't a headshot.
The Birdman has already explained this a few times, but basically, shooting someone in the chest that has a lot more space is a much better idea, especially since her head is a much smaller target and is more likely to miss.
I've said it before, but I'm going to say it again. These displays are the f***ing worst. They're the quality of an old CRT television, complete with analog tape tracking, but they are also slightly transparent, which is a terrible idea if you want to watch what is on the screen and not what is behind it.
And like I explained in another video, this technology is simply different from ours. If that's how it works in this world, then that's how it works.
We toasted a glorious era coming to its bitter end.
Snow's poisoning game is so impeccably timed, Antonius was able to hear all of Snow's speech just before dying.
You don't think that was exactly Snow's intention?
Cinna saw to that. Of course your costume would be bulletproof.
I would sure as f*** hope so. This movie seems to imply that not everyone is wearing bulletproof clothing, which would be f***ing dumb, given that they're always going into active war zones.
But Katniss is the most important person in the entire rebellion, since her presence is enough to inspire people. And how do we know they even have the resources to make more bulletproof clothing?
The whole tacky romance drama and the defender of the hopeless act, even though it's not an act, which makes it even more unbearable.
This basically sums up why I don't like any of these movies.
And that sums up why I think these movies are incredibly interesting, since it's unlike any other romance I've seen in any other story.
All I know is that I would have saved myself a lot of suffering if I had just given that bread to the pig.
I know he's supposed to be all brainwashed against Katniss, but he's not wrong.
I got another correction from Viewer Online 101 where he mentioned that Peeta was already in love with Katniss before he threw the bread. Really sorry about that. I got the timeline mixed up there. I also thought about this alternate reality for a little while, and I realized that Katniss would have probably died because if I remember correctly, that bread saved her life. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments section, and I'll just add a sin by saying that even if Peeta is correct here, that would still hurt Katniss, which is the point. I don't see why this is something wrong with the movie.
Wedding between two people I don't care about is about par for the course when it comes to all the weddings I witness.
Jeremy doesn't care about Finnick. Yep, that's worth a few extra.
Also, this movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and it has time for this bullshit.
So are you suggesting weddings just shouldn't happen in movies? And you admitted in the last video that you're married.
And even though this takes place in an entirely different universe than ours, the people of Pan Am still have to deal with folksy, rustic, chic weddings.
Well then, by that logic, weddings shouldn't exist in this universe, since it's different from ours.
I guess I could just stay here and cover for you.
Only a few minutes earlier, she was lamenting about how much she didn't like Katniss, and now she's willing to assist her with her half-baked plan to kill President Snow.
Joanna has been tortured by Snow in the Capitol for weeks, maybe months. And she has also made it very clear in Catching Fire how much she hated having to go back into the arena. So yeah, I don't blame her for wanting to help Katniss to assassinate him, even if there's a small chance.
Of all the things to survive whatever apocalypse resulted in Pan Am, I can't believe fiddle music was one of them.
More double dipping.
360 hug.
More pointing things out on the screen.
Am I supposed to believe that Katniss was able to sneak into this giant armory from the living quarters and hop onto a cargo plane, all while being Katniss, one of the most recognizable people in all of Pan Am? I guess so.
Yeah, let's just ignore the hood she's wearing to hide her face from everyone, because I guess people should be able to see through it.
Her outfit is about 3 steps away from the fashion of Bill and Ted's reality, so I figure the Hunger Games have to happen before people start being excellent to one another.
Okay, to avoid retreading the last video, we're just gonna do a montage of every single time Jeremy makes an arbitrary movie reference and add 1 sin accordingly. And add 50 cents afterwards, because yes, I'm petty.
Just out frame, the cast of Maze Runner Scorch Trials is avoiding Wicked. Also, this Hunger Games is like the first scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, except it's basically the whole movie. I think we're leaving teen dystopian future movie and heading towards the softcore Saw movie. Hunger Games series, having already copied 2012 last time, copies the day after tomorrow in the finale. It looks like they decided to hide out in the bottle from I Dream of Jeannie. Did someone spill some Amityville horror in this Hunger Games? President Snow discovered Adam Sandler's Pixels technology. I don't remember falling asleep, but did I just wake up watching a live-action adaptation of Kung Fu Panda? Hide down here in Meemaw's basement. This is the most boring episode of MTV Cribs I've ever seen. Is that the same cat from before? The one that we last saw in the bunker? I smell a spinoff. Hunger Games Homeward Bound Part 1. Movie decided to take the Return of the King route when it comes to ending the series.
President Snow is building a minefield of traps.
The next thing she says isn't we have a giant map of it, so it will be very easy to avoid these traps.
But what about the pods that were built after this map was created?
I know when you're gonna go off on your own.
If Katniss is planning on going off on her own, then why would she let everyone know she was in the Capitol by walking out of the cargo vessel in plain sight? Now all the rebels in the Capitol will know she's missing when she goes off on her own, which may end up not being a problem because she went missing in 13 and no one seemed to give a shit.
I mean, come on, when she arrived here, she was bound to be caught at some point.
Because we don't want the game makers to know we have this intel.
It has a self-destruct on it.
Yeah, but doesn't the fact that if you survive even a couple of those booby traps tell them that?
I feel like they could survive a couple of them even without this holo.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 76th Hunger Games.
If only. Do you know why you originally wanted to see the Hunger Games? It was because of the f***ing Hunger Games. Yeah, it was brutal and terrible, but it was a hell of a lot more fun than this Revolution bullshit. Would you have paid to see either of these two Mockingjay movies if it weren't for the first two Hunger Games? Probably not.
In the last video, I went on a whole tangent explaining why this is dumb, so I'll keep it short this time. The whole point of the Hunger Games is that the Hunger Games are bad. It's a commentary on our world for glorifying violence, so this Revolution is the perfect story for this series.
Didn't they blow up this dam in the last movie? I guess it's a different dam, but since I have no idea where the other dam was or why it was important, I reserve the right to claim the filmmakers didn't either.
But you do know, you earlier said that that previous dam was in District 5.
Also because they already did that at the dam in District 5.
Not only that, but it was important because it held the power for the Capitol and helped BD hack into their satellites. This is a different dam.
Hold it. Pollock's tighter.
If they're going to film them shooting at the pods and use the footage for more propos, how is that not going to give away that they all know where the pods are?
I would assume that even if they didn't have the holo, they'd be able to be suspicious enough to figure out where some specific pods are.
Look, I get why the game makers made all these booby traps for the rebels to run through and everything, but I don't know why they made this obstacle course so sporting. This is war. You can make it super unfair if you want to. How the rebels even got this far is amazing.
But it's what you want, right? This is the closest we get to the actual Hunger Games, so why aren't you at least somewhat grateful?
Oh no, an exploding car that makes absolutely no impact to the scene whatsoever.
So this car telling us how powerful this explosion isn't impactful?
They want us to add him to the propo. Show that he's on our side now.
The rebel brass seem to care way more about making videos than formulating battle tactics.
If this were an actual army of soldiers assigned to go into war, I'd agree with you. But this specific squad was ordered to film propos. There are other squads out there doing what you want them to do.
Friend, lover, victor, fiance.
The cook, the thief, his wife, her lover.
Saying things.
This shit is stupid. I mean, yeah, it would kill you all right, but what about slamming a big metal gate down so they can't go any farther? Or bombs?
Wait, you suggested bombs. But that's exactly what kills the Prowler.
Even after constant warnings about how there might be pods we don't know about, Boggs still decides to trust his little gizmo without any hesitation.
But doesn't this refute that previous sin where you seemingly didn't know that a bomb kills Cottonmouth?
Where is this tar coming from?
From a place we can't see. Isn't that exactly the point? This tar seemingly comes out of nowhere so it can surprise our heroes.
Good of that overflowing river of oil to stop flowing right at this very spot so that PETA can attack Katniss and neither of them dies.
Or maybe it hasn't gotten to this specific spot yet?
I guess it would have been unreasonable for the black sludge to continue rising, so they drew the line at convenience.
But if you acknowledge that it's reasonable for this liquid to stop at some point, why are you sending it?
How did all that overflowing oil retreat back to where it came from? Do they have some sort of vacuum or something to bring all that oil back?
Yeah, probably, but why does it matter? You earlier criticized this movie for having a freaking wedding, as if that was wasting time. So wouldn't the movie explaining this waste time as well?
I guess every structure the Capitol is built is extremely brittle and could be destroyed with a relatively small amount of explosives.
Jeremy thinks this wouldn't be enough to blow this up.
The future depicted in this series is violent and bleak, but at least everyone gets really good reception, even in the middle of battles.
These TVs are meant to show important announcements at all times, whether they're actually on or not.
Katniss Everdeen seems to have met a violent end.
The rebels didn't really hide when they ran across the courtyard, and they could definitely be seen in that footage the Capitol just broadcast. Yet the Peacekeepers only shot where the bullets were coming from, and nothing else. The Capitol really needs to work on getting their cameras to work all the time, instead of just when it's convenient to our main characters.
What Jeremy is missing here is that it was briefly mentioned that the tar damaged any cameras that were around. The Peacekeepers most likely had to bring their own camera to record this explosion.
These four were Capitol citizens and therefore exempt from the Hunger Games, so why did they have these glamour shots on file?
Are you seriously implying they wouldn't have any pictures at all?
Also, this isn't an actual Hunger Games where they should honor the fallen, and Caesar just talked about how they were foolish, so why the f is the Capitol even wasting their time with this in memoriam reel?
This was never a memoriam. When this played in the first two films, it was to let the tributes know who died and who was left to kill. In this movie, it's to let Pan Am know who died and to rub it in their faces how much they won.
For those of you who don't know me, please allow me to introduce myself.
The Capitol, with all its vast resources, can't seem to figure out a way to keep the rebels from hijacking broadcasts.
Because Beatty is just that darn good.
I had no idea I meant so much to her.
She's been a propaganda pawn since the first Hunger Games, and it's not like we don't know at this point that Coin is shady. The quasi-snarky attitude she's copying here really comes off as naive.
How is it not obvious that Katniss is being sarcastic here? Oh, wait, you don't notice obvious things. This is normal for you.
My brother knows these tunnels really well.
Of course he does. And when they arrive at the hedge maze that I'm sure this movie has, there will be a guy who built the maze in their small propaganda party.
But it does make sense, though. Foggy here is an Avox, people who the Capitol captured, cut out their tongues, and forced them to work as their slaves. Of course he'd know how to navigate this place, since he worked here before.
Also, the Capitol booby-trapped everywhere above ground, but never once thought the underground tunnels would be a place where a rebel force might try to enter.
Is that why there are mutts around to kill most of the squad later?
We're too exposed here.
Yeah, but no booby traps, so it's better than above ground, right?
Is that why there are lights that instantly disintegrate some of them later?
They survived. I don't know how.
I do. They walked up one flight of stairs and didn't get shot at. Pretty simple to me.
What? So if they did that, they would have survived this?
We're gonna stop here for a bit and get some rest, yeah?
Are we gonna have to watch all of that also?
But wouldn't the movie be unrealistic if they never took a break? You always want movies to be like real life anyway, so the film is doing what you want, basically.
They would show me pictures of my life, but some weren't real.
It would have been nice for them to actually show this instead of having PETA tell the whole story. Just another way these last two movies wasted their time.
But why? It's not really important to see. Hearing PETA's account is enough. And like I said earlier, these movies are told from Katniss's perspective, so it makes sense that we don't see it, because Katniss didn't see it either.
We gotta go. We gotta get out of here now.
After PETA's urgency, we spend roughly 4 minutes just slowly walking around the sewers, giving me enough time for the suspense to wear off and the frustration over nothing happening to wear on.
Wear off? Because it sure didn't for me when I watched this scene.
Here's 2 minutes of our heroes crawling around in the sewer, because Mockingjay makes more money and less sense if it's 2 separate movies.
Double dipping.
Oh no, chuds!
And doesn't this debunk the earlier sins where you said that there are no pods underground? Because I'm pretty sure this does.
Since we aren't in some kind of jungle, like the earlier Hunger Games, we get weird alien creatures rather than mutant monkeys.
So why is that a sin then? You admit that it makes sense for the movie to do this, but don't explain why it's bad. Plus, isn't it a good thing that this is different? Make this seem unique from the monkeys?
Close-up, dark, quick, edited, random nothingness of an action scene. This movie steals from the House of Aliens, but instead of stealing the $1 million in gold bullion on the coffee table, they stole a watch and an umbrella and called it a day.
Huh? In the footage you're showing, I can see what's happening just fine. How are you making this point?
That's what you get when you decide to get married.
Sinning the death of Finnick O'Dare. No, I don't care that I'm padding my sin count.
President Snow discovered Adam Sandler's Pixels technology.
And doesn't this debunk the earlier sins where you said that there are no pods underground? Because I'm pretty sure this does.
President Snow and his minions clearly do not give a because their pods are destroying everything.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Snow would do anything he could to kill Katniss, and I doubt he cares about all the work that he has to go into rebuilding everything.
These assholes jump at the last minute, but how did they have any idea that whatever it is behind them was going to stop at that exact spot? And why would you make a booby trap that arbitrarily cuts itself off halfway through the subway station?
But didn't you just make a point that Snow was destroying everything? Now you're sitting the movie for not doing that?
I know you. You were a stylist in the games.
Until Snow decided I wasn't pretty enough anymore.
In Snow's defense, lady, you took the name Tigress way too literally.
That doesn't make any sense. Tigress explicitly said that Snow turned her into this. So it was Snow that took the name too literally. How are you blaming Tigress for this?
Also, nearly this whole movie is running from one place to another, and then waiting for 10 minutes, and no one even has an interesting sex story to tell. I'd even accept a straight theft of one of the soldiers' stories in Saving Private Ryan right now. No sin, just sweet relief.
How many times have you brought up that this was 2 movies and didn't need to be padded out? Because you've done that a lot, and I feel like this contradicts that again.
A broadcast signal can be picked up in this basement?
And now here's another contradiction. You have criticized the technology in this series multiple times because it seemingly doesn't make sense in the future. But now that you're getting the opposite of that, you're questioning it.
Even if I didn't know what was going to happen at the end of this scene, I'd be an asshole walking in this crowd thinking, Snow's going to pack all of us into his mansion, and then I'd leave because what a bunch of bullshit.
It's called desperation.
Rebel Missile Ex Machina.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a Deus Ex Machina, since Katniss still doesn't get to complete her mission in this scene and gets knocked out in the end.
Prim sits there staring at Katniss so long, you might as well plaster a neon sign on the screen that says Prim's gonna die.
Hey, I'm still heartbroken about this death all these years later. I'll take all the time we can get for her to see her sister one last time.
Half the last 2 movies' runtime is dedicated to Katniss in hospitals.
And half of these last 2 videos have been arbitrary movie references.
Fight was over after the Capitol dropped those bombs to defend the palace.
So we spend the entire series building up to a war, and then we don't even get to see how that war ends.
Don't think you'd be satisfied anyway, since apparently the only thing you wanted from this franchise was to see kids kill each other.
Let her in.
Good thing an authority figure was here at this very moment so Katniss could confront Snow.
And good thing I just happened to be right here recording this video, and my audience just happened to be right here watching this.
I must concede it was a masterful move on Coin's part.
Wait a minute, so Coin is the one who killed all those kids? But that means other people know, right? She found rebels who willingly launch bombs on children. How would she keep that secret?
You seriously don't think she'd ask them to swear to keep the secret?
Is that you?
I don't know.
If someone asks you if you helped murder a bunch of children and you respond with I don't know, you might as well say, yes, I did.
Yeah, because admitting that you literally killed children, including your girlfriend's sister, is definitely easy.
You want to have another Hunger Games with the Capitol's children?
You're joking.
Not in the slightest.
With all the hotheads in that room that are vehemently opposed to a Hunger Games for obvious reasons, no one decides to kill Coin right now.
You sure about that? Because I'm pretty sure Katniss is planning that execution right now in her head.
Haymitch is the only person at the table who understands what Katniss is trying to do.
And how do you know that? We don't get in the heads of any of the other victors, and that's because all of them have already voted.
The first movie had the characters travel down this route in chariots, so who knows how long walking would take. I bet they cut out like 15 minutes here.
So you're really telling me that you've been complaining that this story was split into 2 films for 2 whole videos, and yet you wanted to watch the entire walk?
So Effie made it out alive, obviously, but what happened to Caesar Flickerman? Does he still get to host his little show, or did the rebels explode him?
Surprisingly, even the book leaves his fate as a mystery, though I think he would probably go to prison, knowing how he treated children killing each other as a sport.
Luckily, this execution is staged so that Snow is right in front of Coin, and Katniss can shoot her arrow without dramatically changing directions.
And luckily, Lionsgate just happened to find the books and decide they're good enough to make movies around. And luckily, Jennifer Lawrence just happened to be at the right place at the right time to be cast as Katniss.
I get that the rebels all hate Snow and want him dead, but why did none of them go for Katniss, who should be considered a traitor for killing the new president?
Says they don't go for Katniss while showing soldiers take her away into custody.
Holy shit, this is the calmest cat in the face of flying objects and screaming I have ever seen.
Jeremy sends this scene for literally any reason.
I found these, over by the edge of the forest. It's primrose.
I'm done.
Jeremy sends this scene for literally any reason.
You love me, real or not real?
Real.
All Katniss had to do was f the distrust out of Peeta.
Jeremy sends this scene for literally any reason.
She and Peeta lived through a horrific war and are no doubt scarred for life, but they're parents now, so yay, I guess. It's a page from the Harry Potter book of, oh god, how do I end this shit?
It does fit with the story, though, since the entire trilogy has been building up this romance, and it's nice to know that they did indeed start a family together. And it also calls back to the first movie when Katniss briefly mentioned she would never have kids, and now that there are no more Hunger Games, there's no reason not to. Plus, I wouldn't call this a happy ending. If you listen to Katniss's dialogue here, she goes on to explain to her son that she still has nightmares from her own PTSD, and she even has to make a list of all the good things she's seen someone do to convince herself life is worth living. This is more of a bittersweet ending that depresses the heck out of me, but at least there is some optimism. Though at least I'm happy that I'm finally done listening to you complain about this series.